Welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast. And today my guest is Cormac Noonan, a transpersonal therapist and men's work facilitator. Cormac is the author of two books for young men, Discover Your Destination and Craft Your Character. Cormac is also the founder of Wolf Academy, an organization with a mission to integrate practical well-being solutions into education. Cormac, you are very welcome.
Thanks very much, Sharon, for having me on. Great to be here.
Delighted to have you. And I connected with you through LinkedIn, which a lot of people, I suppose, would see LinkedIn as maybe in past times as for very corporate professionals. And I have seen that change over the years, as I'm sure you have now, where I find it a great space to connect with people, collaborate with others, and again, learn what's going on out there, because we can stay with Instagram or Facebook or whatever the a million other social media platforms there is. So I was delighted to connect with you, Cormac.
Yeah, delighted to connect with you as well. And yeah, it is interesting to see how LinkedIn is starting to change a bit. It's still hard to know how, I suppose, how to be on LinkedIn in some ways for me, just in terms of the different work that I do. So like some in schools and then, which is maybe on the slightly more practical side, and then the transpersonal stuff is a bit, on maybe the more spiritual side of things. So it's kind of trying to find a balance of how to represent yourself on these platforms, because I suppose, yeah, we're quite complex beings. So it's hard to represent, how to know how to just represent yourself, I suppose.
Mm. Excuse me, my way of showing up is to always just be myself. Because there
Yeah.
was that thing, as I said, with different platforms and how you should show up. And when you're trying to break yourself up into different parts,
Mm,
you separate everything that you are within yourself. And I think
mm,
within our work, we're combining all aspects. So something I work with is the four rooms of well-being, which is our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. We can't separate them, no matter whether we're in the corporate
mm,
world, young, old, it doesn't matter, because that's who we are as a whole person. And I think that's coming more into the
mm.
forum of LinkedIn, where people are realizing that well-being is needed in every
Yeah.
area. So with
Mm.
you, let's get down to you, Cormac. I love this. So when you talk about, being a transpersonal therapist and men's work facilitator, what brought you into that work for yourself, Cormac?
Yeah, it's funny when you say it because just listening back to your introduction, I was like, how did I get into these things? And it doesn't feel like it was a conscious decision. I've just kind of ended up, on this path with the transpersonal therapy approach and also with the men's work. But I suppose if I look back, it's, you know, over 10 years ago now, probably when I really started to look at myself and who I was and had my own struggles with confidence and, yeah, not feeling good enough. I'm sure it's something a lot of people feel, but I struggled in social situations at times as well. Or even, when it came to like speaking to girls and stuff, I just didn't know what I was doing.
Mhm.
And I started looking into the mind and I came across, the power of the mind and how you can change your beliefs and how you can use positive psychology. And a lot of Tony Robbins stuff early on was kind of resonating with me, changing your state to get into a optimal state of mind. And I suppose I got to a certain point with that, with like CBT and NLP and different things. And then I suppose I was kind of in a good place probably in my early 20s. And then I went off traveling for a while. And then I suppose it was probably when I was away, I was in Mexico and I was up in a mountain up there and I had a very spiritual experience. And that just opened me up to like, there's so much more than just the mind. Um, I was probably, early to mid 20s, kind of thinking I knew everything. And then I was like, shit, I don't know anything. And yeah, they kind of went on a journey from there, into the spiritual side of things. And it was when I returned home to Ireland, I came across Martin Duffy on a podcast, and he was speaking about soul loss. And at the time, I was feeling a bit disconnected, even though on paper I had, you know, the dream work that I was doing with Wolf Academy was my passion. I had an amazing girlfriend, like the love of my life, and I had all this stuff, but I felt a bit empty inside.
Mm.
And I felt that when he mentioned soul loss, I was like, there's something here for me. And I think I booked an appointment with him, and within a week, I was sitting in front of him. And it was like when I had that conversation with him, it was like everything started clicking into place, as if I was always meant to be in that chair speaking to him. And yeah, and then I went on and trained with him, doing the shamanic practitioner training and shamanic counseling and other trainings to become a transpersonal therapist. And I think, like you said at the start, when we, maybe I'm still working on how to, I wouldn't normally speak about this when I go into schools. I'd just be more practical because I don't know if they'd be as open, but maybe they will as time goes on. But I think if we don't integrate the spiritual aspect of ourselves, then yeah, we can only go so far. We can only, be, we can't fully embody who we truly are. The soul piece for me is really important. And yeah, I found that working with people, when we go beyond the personal, like obviously we all have our own personal traumas and things that happened to us in the past, but I suppose the transpersonal goes beyond that into, your soul purpose and maybe past lives and ancestral stuff. And, it keeps going deeper and deeper. And I'm still learning, like I'm only at the start of my journey in many ways. But, it's great to be able to help guide other people on their individual journey. And I suppose the other thing is with the men's work, yeah, that again, when I got back to Ireland, I just, like I was doing great and all, but I didn't feel fully connected to my power and I didn't feel fully embodied because the transpersonal is great, but maybe it can bring you off into other realms and other worlds. And, we also need to be here in this physical body and grounded on the earth. Well, that's what I believe. So the men's work for me was really about getting into my body and getting in touch with my sexuality as well, which I'd felt a bit shut off from, which I knew was also connected to my personal power. And I found a mentor, Niall Graham, who has been, amazing. So I've been working with him for the last year and a half. I've worked with him in one-on-one and group settings, and I've done a few male rites of passage as well with him and with the Mankind Project as well. And I'm actually going to be supporting Niall this year in his work. And I'm going to be doing a rites of passage for young men myself. I'm going to be co-organising that with another friend, Barry Adamson. So yeah, it's just the men's work has really kind of snowballed for me in the last couple of years. And it just feels definitely part of my purpose is to work with men. Like I've played football when I was younger up till my late 20s. And I think, I've always enjoyed being in that atmosphere with men. And I would have seen myself, I was quite quiet, but I'd kind of lead by example. And yeah, I feel like this is definitely a really important part of my purpose is to work with men as well. So yeah, it's ever unfolding, but I'm enjoying the journey so far.
Lovely, Cormac. Thank you for your openness. As I said, a lot of my listeners, they're inspired by the people that come on the podcast because it is a space where we can share our stories and our vulnerabilities and say where we are, what we have to learn, and where we came from and where it has brought us. And I think that is part of the journey for all of us. And what I loved when you said, in your 20s, you were at the top of a mountain in Mexico and it was a huge spiritual experience for you. And for many, they will say, oh, I would love to have had that experience. But it's giving ourselves the opportunity, the space, and the time to step away from all of the distractions of life. Like we all know, we have to work, we have to, connect with other people. I'm not sure if we have to be on social media all the time, But again, it's taking space. So again, with the events that you run, even with the men's groups and with even the programs that you run for children in schools, I think we all need to step back and out of the system
Mm,
that we have been programmed and conditioned to believing that's the way we do it. And for me, I always felt like there had to be another way. There
mm,
had to be something else where we could connect deeper to ourselves. But when we connect to ourselves, we're able to connect deeper to others through that vulnerability, through that power within us. And again, what is it that people are afraid to be seen as powerful?
mm. It's a brilliant question. Um, and I suppose I can answer from my own
Mm,
experience because I think this has been probably my biggest wound is having my power taken away from me when I was very young. Um, and yeah, I think there's a fear to assert ourselves. I had that fear to assert myself. And it's still something that comes up like if I'm not very, have to be really on top of looking at myself, I can still go back into that pattern because it's obviously been ingrained from such a young age to like not be assertive and be more passive and receptive. And it's given me a great ability to understand people and, empathize or, work with people in that therapeutic setting. But because I'm more receptive, I can see what's going on for them. But part of that came from when I was younger, there was a fear of others taking advantage of me. So I was always looking at them, their patterns, their behaviors to make sure I was safe. Um, and I think when my power was taken, um, yeah, I've never actually spoken about this on a public forum, but I only found out in the last couple of years that I was abused as a child. And I think that was initially when my power was taken. And then subsequently with like friends, I kind of repeated that pattern by hanging out with a friend when I was younger who was kind of a bully and he manipulated me because I was kind of comfortable in that dynamic of being the victim in a sense and being told what to do. Um, so that was part of it. It was kind of stuck in this strange dynamic of being okay, being the victim because that's all I knew. And only when I really kind of tapped into my power was when I went to the Mankind Project Rites of Passage, and they were getting me to. They asked me directly after doing like a couple of, I don't know, it was about 2 days into the retreat, and we'd done lots of practices to kind of open us up, and I was quite open at the time and vulnerable, and they asked me directly, "Who took your power?" And I write about this in my latest book, and I knew straight away who took it. Um, and I said it, and I started going into like grief and sadness and like understanding. I was like, oh, I know why he did it because he was wounded and blah blah blah. But they're like, we don't want your grief. It's like, don't go into the grief, go into the anger because like,
mm,
there's anger there. Because I had no problem going into grief, and I'd been doing men's circles in the woods and stuff before that, so I was quite in touch with my sadness and my grief and my ability to love, but I wasn't connected to my anger. And then I finally they kind of pushed me into it and I just lost it. Like I tapped into rage, which is much deeper than just your normal everyday anger. It's I actually work with men who are perpetrators of domestic violence as well. Um, and they speak about this rage that overcomes them and you lose consciousness because it's such a powerful force that comes and overtakes your body. Luckily, I was doing it in an environment that was safe, and there was loads of men there to hold that space. That's why they wanted to bring it out, and I released that rage in a safe environment in a healthy way, and because I was still holding on to that from childhood against that person, and until I released and tapped into that rage, I couldn't access my power. So after that weekend, I felt like a man because I'd tapped into this power within me. And after that weekend, that was like the initial tapping into it. I suppose I had to integrate that then into my relationships and into my life. how can I be more assertive in my relationship with my partner and in other areas of my life, and have that kind of warrior archetype as well, to tap into that warrior archetype in a healthy way. It's not about putting other people down. It's just, stating your own boundaries and being in your personal power. So that's kind of the start of my journey with that. And I think there's a fear of our own power is why we're afraid of it. And maybe, I still notice there's still parts of me that's afraid to fully show myself, because maybe now from my perspective on the transpersonal side, it could be past lives where, when you show your power, you were chopped down. Or maybe even in this life, it's still, that kind of tall poppy syndrome, if I start, showing my full self, everyone's going to be like, who does he think he is? Especially in Ireland, we hear that a lot. Who the hell does he think he is, doing that, doing something different? And I've never let that stop me before, but I think it can be much easier to just want to fit in and just want to be the same as everyone else. And, if you, as you said, the programming that we hear from childhood through school, through adult life, would make us all just kind of be average and be the same. Like just want to be like everyone else. So to step into your power is, it means you might lose friends, you might not be liked. So it can be quite scary. But for me, that's the work I want to do with men, is helping them reconnect to their power.
Mm. Well done, Connor, and thank you for sharing. You haven't shared that on a public forum. And I have so much compassion for you, because also as a victim of sexual abuse from a young age, I can understand everything you're saying, and that feeling of our power being taken away. And for me, and it really resonates with me strongly when you say that, because I was only teaching Reiki at the weekend, and the group I had, and they spoke about, the blame and blaming somebody else. And I said, the more you continue to blame that other person for your weaknesses, for the way you feel, for your anger, for your rage, for not being able to show it, for not, stepping up into your own life, is you not taking responsibility. Now, as the adult, I'm talking about, as the child, we don't have the choice. But as the adult, we are responsible
Mm.
to take our power back. And however we can do that. So for you, I'm delighted you found that safe space, that circle of men to hold you so you can have that rage. Because again, as children, that are succumbing to abuse or bullying or, whatever is going on in their life or in their schools or in their friends groups or wherever, sports clubs, they want to fit in. They don't want to stand out. And sometimes that rage will be seen as the bold child or the child that's put at the back of the class. And that rage could be coming from a place of not being able to express actually how they feel. They don't have the emotional intelligence. They know they're just really angry, but the anger is frowned upon, which is only another emotion that we actually have. And I always say it takes 90 seconds for anger to move through our body energetically. But how long do we hold on to anger? And what damage does it do to ourselves? Of course, we don't have the awareness of that as children.
Mm.
And that's why I'm so interested in you and your own story. And now you working with adult men, but also going into schools.
Mm.
And what fascinated me was a few things stood out. And, I'm a very observant person. I'm very curious also. And I go deep into things, and it opens up these pathways in my mind, Cormac, to make me
Mm.
kind of go, oh, I like that. Or I could love to go deeper into that. One of the things on your website was positive masculinity. Okay, that
Mm.
was one of the things that stood out. The other thing that stood out to me was nature-based workshops. Just huge, bright light everywhere in my mind and my heart when I saw that.
Mm.
So we'll come to the positive masculinity first. So as beings, energetic beings, we have masculine and feminine energy. Every one of us. Doesn't matter about our gender. and to find a balance between the masculine and the feminine. So for obviously I'm a female living in a female body, but I'm a spiritual being incorporating all of my masculine and feminine energy into what I do, where I live, how I interact. And women can be seen as the nurturers. Okay, this is kind of where it's a little bit, I suppose, the perceptions of society. So we should be the nurturers, the carers, the givers. But when we step into our power roles and assert ourselves, we're called lots of things.
Mm.
And sometimes by other women, not just by men. So if you step into your masculinity, but you show your feminine side, which you are doing today, you're nurturing that part of yourself that's vulnerable. You're caring about, where you can give yourself this wholeness within you and how you can share that out into a wider community. How is that incorporated into positive masculinity?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, this is still a topic, masculine, feminine, something I'm still trying to understand and get to grips with because, I think it's like as humans, we try to put words on these concepts that are much, deeper than words can go. But I suppose because I came up with the name based on, what we were seeing in society, there was a lot of talk about the words toxic masculinity. And I wanted to come up with something that seemed to be the opposite. I probably prefer the word healthy masculinity, but I just thought positive in terms of catching teachers and schools' attention might work. So positive masculinity is what I started calling the talk that I was doing. I got asked to speak to TY students in Killarney, and because it was quite a drive from where I was, we decided to do it on Zoom, and they had a load of questions for me, and it was an amazing chat, that conversation, because I didn't want to just talk to them about it. I wanted them to have, like, ask me questions like what did they actually want to know about being a man. And again, I just used the word masculinity because we associate that with men, but obviously we have both feminine and masculine parts as men. So I spoke about that, and I spoke about the importance of connecting to our feminine side, which is that softer side and the ability to feel, but also being connected to the masculine side. Because in society, or, with Instagram and different things, we tend to, polarize things and be like, this is the way, no, this is the way. So you have some people saying men should be softer, some people saying men should be harder. Well, it's like, well, maybe we need to be able to tap into both of those energies. And we actually come up with a workshop then for like TY 5th and 6th year students. So that was all around, how to be a healthy man. So we used the archetypes that would have, in the men's movement in the 90s, they come up with like 4 kind of key archetypes: the warrior, the magician, the lover, and the king, to, understand the different sides, parts of a man. And so we go through that in our workshops in the school. It's more of a circle now. So we all sit in a circle because we don't want to, be preaching too much to them. We want to engage conversation and get them thinking about what is it to be a man. So we'd ask them the question themselves. And then when it comes back to us, we might share, well, there's this concept of the lover, which is connecting to our hearts. And that's, expressing ourselves in a healthy way. And if we don't, and that's kind of a more water energy, and if we don't have that balance with the warrior, which is like the, kind of stronger, more assertive side of ourselves, then it becomes imbalanced and unhealthy. So, like, in order to help them tap into their power, we must also make sure they're tapping into their heart, because like we make that very clear, because there is lots of people fear masculine power because they see destruction and they see men trying to take over and dominate. But if we're connected to the both, then we're in service to the heart and in service to the earth. And that kind of brings me on to the nature based. So I suppose we just myself and I think you met Yvonne at an event recently. I saw you were speaking with her, and
Yes.
she's been working with us for years, and we've other facilitators as well. And I suppose we realised as well, being in the schools, that we need to get them out of the school and into nature, not only to get out of that environment, but also to learn to connect with nature and to understand, that we need to protect the earth and look after the earth. And for me, that's been a big part of my journey as well, is, connecting deeper to the earth, to the energy of, what the earth embodies, and it's, that feminine energy of the mother. Um, and I suppose as a man, I think a lot of us as men are looking for purpose, looking for, something deeper than just our own ego selves. And I suppose having a child or having a family can kind of fill that, need for purpose and protection, but also to serve like the Mother Earth. Mother Earth for me is, really opened up something in me and opened up my heart to like this deep sense of purpose and this deep sense of connection to the earth. And we just want to help young people start to rebuild that relationship with the earth. Like if you go back to indigenous cultures here or any other country, they all, revered nature and the earth and knew that we were, in communion with the earth and in connection with the earth, and treating it like, the way we treat it today, you can see that there's a disconnect. So it's like, how can we, work in harmony with the earth and look after the earth? And so we're, I suppose, bringing this into the schools, and we do primary school workshops as well, all around them, tapping into different emotions, just to get them used to emotions and get them used to nature, and give, like the young lads, we had a workshop in my old school in St. Pat's in Navan. I wasn't actually doing it. We had two of our other facilitators, Patrick and Finn, and they were talking to the TY lads, and they said they'd never heard anyone speak about what it means to be a man up to that point, and like they're 15, 16. So it's like, we just want to start these conversations, like what is it to be a man? What is it? We do women's circles as well. The women facilitators would do it with the young women in secondary schools. So it's like, what is it to be a woman? And yeah, start to get these conversations going and give them tools if they need for, connecting to themselves or whatever it is. But I think that concept of the circle, is sitting in circle and bringing back that community, that's really, I think, at the core of what we're trying to do here. So we just feel it's important, not only for their own well-being, but also, these are going to be the future generations who are going to have to look after the earth and come up with solutions for, how we're going to move forward. So I think, we need to look at education as, such an important piece of that puzzle, to how do we get ourselves out of the mess we're in at the moment.
Well done, Cormac. Because it's really when you're talking about education. Okay, so pros and cons to our school system and the way it has progressed, or not progressed, I should say. And again, that's my personal experience, looking at it and working with so many individuals, young and old, that have been affected by the school system and its expectations of us, where it's points, going to college, it's all exam based. And Gabor Mate had said that the schools have got it all wrong. That play was the most important tool that children will learn and develop through, which I know because my youngest used to always say when they went from creche, play school, and then into junior infants and came home and said, "We don't play anymore, Mom. They just want us to sit at a desk all day long." And the sadness my young child felt, that what we considered was just normal. And again, when we were children, and I'm older than you, Cormac, but when we were children, we were told to sit quiet, to write, to read, to learn, to play, to go to the bathroom, to go home, to go by the whistles. everything. We were being trained and programmed to be robots for society, to sit in an office, to sit in a factory, to teach the job, teach the curriculum, sit in a bank, take the money, do everything was just programming us to be robotic. So there was a sense of ourselves lost. There is where a lot of children didn't feel powerful. But if you were the child that, you know, wasn't afraid to speak up, that took in everything, into their minds and was able to replay it back, but then the child beside them couldn't take it in that way. And they felt left out,
Mm.
inferior, not part of. And they carried that feeling with them into their adult life, maybe never getting support or help, but just believing they were not as good as. So for me, there is so much, and that's why I love the work that you're doing. And I work with adults of all ages as well. And the first place we will go is into the woods, because the minute you see a child or an adult walk into the woods, immediately they're grounded and present in that environment. There isn't distractions. They start taking in the sights and sounds. They're listening more. They're observing things. And even in the city here, and I'm from Galway, County Galway, and when we go into the woods, there's people in the city that have never gone into the woodlands. They've never experienced it. It has never been on their radar to say, I should take a walk in the woods. And as much and all as that surprises me, it doesn't either, because we're not taught that at school. I hear now in schools, that children are told to eat their lunch as quickly as possible and they have so many minutes to play, but don't run because you could fall because now it's health insurance, you know, and
Yeah.
everything is outside. So it's more places for parents to bring their children to be running. It's no time for just being. It's doing, doing, doing constantly. So the fact that you're doing these nature-based workshops for children and what you spoke about in that connection to the earth and then being that future, you know, importance for all of us and for our planet. And if they can get in touch with who they are without having to be just the masculine or just the feminine, but incorporating both of those energies is to me the most important thing we can teach any of our children.
Yeah, yeah, well said there, Sharon. And I think I was only saying to my brother the other day that even when I'm on Instagram and I was trying to post videos there regularly, and then I just was like, there's nothing I can say on these videos that people can't learn from just being in nature. So it's like I posted and then I look back and I'm like, God, I don't even agree with myself. So I'm just like, when I sit in nature, it just, as you said, it's just a time for you can just be.
Mm,
And I love just sitting at the fire. I actually live in the woods now in a little cottage in the woods in Sligo. And it's amazing that I get to go walk in the woods every day. And I had a fire there last Friday and I just sat there for like 6 or 7 hours. And like the peace and the bliss that I had just sitting there looking at the fire. And there was a little robin kind of jumping around.
mm,
I started feeding him a couple of weeks back, and now he kind of follows me around, and I was
mm,
just sitting there with him and almost communicating with the robin from just being there in that present moment. And yeah, it was just like there's nothing to do, and there's no need to get so worried about all of the stresses, I think, in our minds. And I actually was like, I have to commit to myself to spend. I wanted to commit in that moment to spend at least 3 hours alone in the woods every week. And because I know when I go back to work and get onto my laptop, my mind will start taking over again and be like, oh, I don't have time to go to the woods. It's not
mm,
important. But it's only when you're in that place that you really remember. It's like, oh my God, how did I forget again about the importance of this?
mm.
So like, yeah, that would be, I think, my one big recommendation if I had to give one, it would be just like try and spend some time by yourself in nature if you can. And yeah, any answers you're looking for, you'll find them there. Because nature has a way of speaking to you sometimes. So yeah, I love that you brought it up. And yeah, we are just trying to build that relationship between young people and and nature. And a lot of them have resistance at the start. Like we brought some outreach students out there, and I asked them, can you please put away your phones? Like I can't make you do it, but I would ask you, like, just put away your phones for the 3 hours that we're here. And they did. They all did, in fairness. And then when they settled in, they loved it. And some of them were like, that was the longest I've been off my phone since I can remember. But so yeah, it's great to just give them that opportunity to do that and feel what it's like to be in that space.
I love that. And again, people criticize the young people for being on their phones, but it's part of their world now, isn't it? It's their
Mm,
connection to the outside world. And they feel if they don't have it, they're not connected, they're missing out on something. And it causes huge anxiety because they're constantly checking it. Did my friend post? What's my friend doing? So again, it's all the comparisons and
mm,
again, who I should be like. So they're developing into who they are. But if we can offer them, and that's what it is. It's an offering, isn't it? Like
mm,
everything in life, it's an offering to say, yes, you can have the technology, that's your world. But there is another world outside of that. There's this world that has existed long before you and I were here. It has existed and evolved and grown, without any help from us. As you said, we have
mm,
damaged the earth as mankind. But as even with that storm that was there and all of the trees that were knocked and all of those things, and people were saying, there shouldn't be that many trees and knock them all down and there wouldn't be any of this. And I said, without those trees, we wouldn't survive. And as my sister said, she has this Nature for Health program. She said, if those trees weren't sheltering your house, it would have been your house that got damaged, but the
mm,
trees took the brunt of it. But also, what amazed me, and if you look deeper into it, a lot of the trees that were knocked weren't native to Ireland. So it's nearly like the earth said we're getting rid, or Ireland said we're getting rid of what's native to us, and we're allowing space for ours to grow again. So it's like each country is taking back its power and an
mm,
earthly energy based wise for me. So for children, even to notice those things, to show them. And when you walk in nature, and you might walk the same path, Cormac, and you'll notice this yourself. You might walk that same path, and every time you walk it, if you are mindful in that walk and observant, you'll notice something different every time because nature is never the same, ever.
mm. Yeah.
So for me, I love, as I said, I knew even the name Wolf Academy really stood out for me, Cormac.
Mm,
But when I looked in through your website and I just thought, oh my God, this is to me, and I don't want to say just positive, because people have this, perspective on what positive is and, oh, do we have to be positive? But it's not, it's embracing that it's okay to be who we are. And it's okay to have the rage and it's okay to have the sadness and it's okay to have the fear, depending on where we are in that moment because
mm,
it's just energy. That's all the emotions are, isn't it? They're just energy in motion. And again, for children to understand that from, whatever age that we can sit with them. And the beautiful thing is that circle. And I
mm,
love that because I've always circles in groups as well. And even when I was doing that talk when Yvonne was there as well, and my husband said most of the speakers stood to the side. He said, you went right into the center, into the people. And I said, because I want to connect.
mm,
I don't want to be separate. I want to be part of. And that's what I've learned. That's where my power lies, is the connection with others. That I too, like you, Cormac, can resonate with many of the fears and the things that they have gone through or going through, and that we get in touch with our own vulnerability while we are there present with another human being, just as we're present in nature and allowing ourselves to feel in that moment how we feel. And sitting by a
mm,
fire, I think, must be one of the most profound connections that any of us can have in life because the fire offers us all something different if we
mm.
stop to take a look, Cormac. Isn't that right?
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I like what you said there about, stepping into the middle. And, we do a facilitator training now for Wolf Academy. So we train people to go into schools and deliver workshops to primary schools and secondary schools. And we work with teachers as well. But I always say on the training that it's like we teach the storytelling techniques and different
Mm,
things, but I always say like the most important thing is that you are in your heart when you step up in front of them and or sit beside them and just speak from that place and be in that place. And like that's for me, whenever I do workshop, I just focus on being in my heart and just trusting whatever needs to be said. But even just being in that place by being in your heart and not in your head, they'll feel that. They'll be able to calm down, regulate. They'll co-regulate from you, and they'll also
mm,
be able to open up. But because you can share all the wisdom in the world, but if it's coming from your head, it's not going to land. Um, so yeah, that's for me. That's the big part of it. Is just has to be from the heart. And yeah, young people will feel that and they'll know that.
mm. And when you even say that, Cormac, your energy is completely different because
Mm,
you're in touch with yourself, you're in your heart, and children and teenagers will always know when you're not being real.
mm,
And you may feel vulnerable, but in that vulnerability, that is our strength, isn't it? I always say
mm,
it's speaking from your heart, even if your knees are shaking in your trousers and you're kind of having to take a breath for a moment. But even saying that, isn't it?
yeah.
As a facilitator and saying, I feel nervous,
Mm,
or, you know, when I'm coming in here, I feel nervous because I want to be me. And by showing them, especially young men and women, showing them that it's okay to be you, even as an adult, that we haven't it all figured out, even as adults, that we're still figuring it out. I think that that gives them, I want to say hope, but it also gives them permission to be themselves and to show up
mm,
as themselves in that space. If we
yeah,
do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just give them that permission. And that's all we want them to be is themselves. It's not,
Mm,
we have the four archetypes for the men, but I say as well, these are just, models and maps. They're not to
mm,
be, you don't have to embody them all perfectly. It's just like try and tap into who you want to be. And
mm,
people ask me before, like, who's your role models? And from like, who were my role models growing up? And I didn't, I had maybe a few at times, but then I just realized, I think it was a Matthew McConaughey speech when he won an Oscar years ago. I remember seeing it and he said, my hero is me in 5 years' time or me in 10 years' time. So that's what I
mm,
say to the young people. It's like, who do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? Like, that's your role model. Don't be worrying about anyone else
mm.
on Instagram or wherever you see them. It's like, who do you want to be? And yeah, it's quite simple, really, when you think about it. But there's just so many distractions and so much. Um, we get so easily distracted by everything else going on and think we should be doing things. And again, I get caught in this as well. Just
Mm.
recently been like, I should be posting on Instagram or I should be doing this. And it's like, why do you have to do that? Who said you have, just because everyone else is doing it? And the
Mm.
business coaches say you need to do it, but it's like, well, do what you need to do and trust that. So I'm doing this work, but I'm also teaching myself a lot of the time.
And you know what, Cormac? And that's what it is. They talk about school, but it's the school of life. It's where we learn
Mm,
the most. And, if we look at school, and they teach you certain things, but nobody can teach you how to live life outside of a system. And
mm,
it's being, I suppose, programmed to stay in the system. And if you go anyway out of it, then you're seen as an outsider or whatever else you're called. But for me, it's to find a balance within that. Just like you've said, I should post, I should be doing this, this is my business, I have to keep it going. We all get caught up in that. But for me, it's about finding the balance. And
mm,
again, as I went back to it, showing up as your authentic self. And if you're posting something, let it be posting from your heart, something
mm,
that you want to post. Doesn't matter what it is or what it looks like. It's about you and something that you're doing. And
mm,
again, people will see that connect to you, that genuinely connect to you. And again, I just say to everybody, I have an online community, and I say to them, stop worrying about the likes and follows.
mm.
Some people will just press like and they don't even read what you've written,
Yeah.
but it's the person that engages with you. And there's again the connection, the engagement.
Mm,
And that's what about for me. It's not about who you're connected to, but it's who you're engaged with online. So if
mm,
you're using that time purposefully and really connecting with the people that are adding value to your life and sharing and collaborating, that's great. But if you're just going on scrolling and liking and just to be seen to be liking somebody's, you're
yeah.
wasting your time. And that's what
Mm,
a lot of our young people are doing. But they're
yeah.
learning. They are learning. And
Mm,
again, that's through life, isn't it? Like all of us. And really, what struck me the most with you today is when you are speaking from your heart
mm,
and you're being honest with me, but you're really being honest with yourself. That's the integrity.
mm,
That's where you have your power.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it can be still scary, I suppose. Obviously, I have my men's groups and different things where I try to speak from my heart or live from my heart. But yeah, it can be different when it's going to be listened to, people online or whatever that you don't know. But yeah, just trusting that, living from my heart and speaking from my heart is, what I need to do and what I want to do and who I want to be. So, yeah, I trust that even, yeah, might not always work out the way you want, but you just have to follow your heart and trust. And keep the mind, like the mind is a great servant but a terrible master, as they say. So just, use the mind when you need to, but yeah, don't let the mind take control and put you into fear. So yeah, I just keep going with the heart and see where it goes.
Absolutely. And one of the things I said to my group also as well, they were talking about vision boards and manifesting, and I said, get rid of them.
Mm,
When you're only focused on this block of a picture on your wall or your screen or wherever it is, your focus is only on that. And we need focus and clarity to know where we're going and what we're doing. But everything is just today because that's all we have.
yeah.
If we just focus on this, if I only stayed looking at this screen for the rest of my life, imagine everything else I'm missing out here,
Mm,
left and right. So it's to expand our awareness, to expand our energy, to expand our opportunities. And just because it's not happening the way you want to, maybe that's not what you need. So for me, it's always letting it evolve organically.
mm,
My only advice to anybody would be if you speak your truth, and even though at the back of your mind there's a voice going, oh, they're going to laugh at you for saying that or showing up or talking like that or sharing your vulnerability, my
mm,
heart goes, who cares? I'm being me. And that's all
mm,
that counts.
yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Mm.
Yeah. I think I love the what you said there about the vision board because yeah, if you get so super focused on has to be this way, yeah, you're going to miss out on what the universe actually has planned for you, which could be way bigger than
Yeah.
what you could even imagine. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like you have to get out your own way too and
Yeah.
just surrender sometimes, as hard as
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just open your heart and let it out
Mm,
there. Let the energy of it flow out, Cormac.
mm,
It has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you,
yeah.
Cormac, today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah. Wasn't sure where we were going to go, but yeah, really enjoyed that. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I never have a script or a set of questions to ask. I always just let the energy
Mm,
bring me to where we need to go to. And again, we're allowing it to flow freely, it brings us into the most beautiful conversations and the beautiful openings that allows other people to look into their hearts while they're listening and going, wow, that really resonated with me. It's not just this is what I do, this is what I offer, and this is what da 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 da, you
mm,
know because that changes and evolves with us as we change and evolve. So I can't say this is exactly what I do because, as you said, it's changing all the time, but it's what you're offering. And I think for us showing up, whether it be in the podcast or in our work or our circles, is showing up and saying, this is what I offer in this space today. And that may change with the energy of the group or the energy of the guest or the energy of wherever I am in that moment. That will change. So I
mm,
don't think we can get set on who we are. This is what I
yeah.
offer. And
Mm,
whatever that shows up like in the day or in the workshop, it will be the right way for all of us. So, Cormac, I can only wish you every
Mm.
success in everything that you do. I love the work that you're doing. I absolutely think it's amazing. And again, the nature-based workshops for me are, wow, highlight them. They are just amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Mm.
So if anybody wants to find out more about Cormac, you can find him on wolfacademy.ie. Cormac Noonan is also on LinkedIn, and Wolf Academy are on LinkedIn. You're on Instagram as well. Cormac and Wolf Academy is on Instagram. And you also have the Nature of Education podcast, which is available on all platforms as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Um, mm. Yeah, and yeah, I'm just gonna get back into my men's work now as well, working with men outside of the schools, adult men. So yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, or most of my updates will be there. So yeah, watch that space as well. We'll see what's coming.
Well, I can't wait. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see what comes from even this conversation today, Cormac, for you, because you've been very honest
Mm.
and I'm very grateful for your time and for showing up as you.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. Thanks for having me, and yeah, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely was. So please do go and check out Cormac and follow him on Instagram and on LinkedIn and connect with him through his website if you want to find out about all of the wonderful workshops and men's circles that he is running. And also if you're interested in the teacher wellness workshops as well, because we may have talked about the students, but we know the pressures that teachers are under as well to deliver a curriculum and everything else they have to do, that it is quite hard for them. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Cormac, for your amazing insights today. It has been wonderful.
Thank you, Sharon.
So that was a wonderful Cormac Noonan, an amazing conversation with him. So again, I appreciate you listening to the podcast as always. And I would really appreciate if you would follow, subscribe, and share with your friends and family because these conversations can change somebody's perception of where they are and where they want to go and how they can be supported in their own journey. So, this podcast is brought to you in association with Retreats Ireland, and you can check out my work, or if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast or sponsor an episode through sharonfitzmaurice mindfulness.com. Until next time, take care of you.